Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Today is May the 8th, 2017. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. A couple of favorites hit for us this weekend. David Lemieux won his fight. Canelo won his fight. Good weekend. But let's go a little bit deeper. Let's talk about a general theme here, right? I'm a big believer that you want to buy low and sell high. In other words, the time to go grab talent, the time to make your bet on a talented fighter is when the rest of the world seems to view that fighter with suspicion. It's when the rest of the world thinks that the guy is overvalued. And you've looked at the fight and you don't know what everyone's talking about. Now that's the case this Monday morning with heavyweight champion Joseph Parker, right? I have a video in my favorites folder here online that has Dillian Whyte, British heavyweight, talking about how he wants to fight Joseph Parker now, right? Because Parker supposedly looked lackluster. He didn't knock out Raven Kajanu, right? Okay, didn't get the knockout. And of course with him is Johnny Nelson. And Johnny Nelson points out that Kajanu used to be Parker's sparring partner. And that this was a fight where Parker needed to make a statement and didn't. Right? Johnny Nelson goes even further and says that while he was watching the fight with Dillian Whyte, Dillian Whyte was pointing out the punches that could have been landed on Joseph Parker at certain times. Now, briefly, I saw a different fight than these guys because I recently saw, as did everyone here, the Anthony Joshua Klitschko fight, right? Because I saw those heavyweights. I had an idea on how those heavyweights moved. And Joseph Parker is much more athletic than Anthony Joshua. Moved a lot faster. I believe you saw it in this fight. Had much faster hand speed. As I was looking at the video, I was thinking to myself, man, you know, Parker would be just physically very hard for either man, Anthony Joshua or Vladimir Klitschko, to handle. So, I understand Dillian Whyte wants a crack at him. Be careful what you ask for. I personally feel that Joseph Parker beats Dillian Whyte. I'll go further. Tony Bellew said that he was contacted by the Parker people. I personally feel that Joseph Parker beats Tony Bellew. Now, I'll agree. Parker's a guy who at times isn't aggressive, right? He's the sleeping bear you don't want to wake up in the middle of a fight. But, oh, be careful if you wake him up. Folks, he's elusive, he has hand speed, he's a better athlete than most heavyweights. I know I was criticizing Joseph Parker in my pre-fight video on Parker versus Fury. Just be aware of the fact that Parker's dangerous. I think Parker beats. One man's opinion. Dillian Whyte and Tony Bellew. Let's shift gears. Let's talk about Canelo against Chavez Jr., right? The most revealing piece I've come across concerning this fight was Chavez's post-fight interview, where he talked about how weak he felt because of the weight loss. He obviously wasn't himself, right? Folks, the minute he signed the contract to fight this fight at 164.5, he was in big trouble. Right? Casual fans can't go back to an era when he fought more often at lighter weights and feel that that man still exists. Right? This guy was dead man walking at 164.5. Let's also not get too excited here. I'll agree, Canelo looked great. We'll talk about his game in a moment. Right? We'll even speculate. We'll give an updated analysis on Canelo against Golovkin. But let me just say this. Chavez Jr. before this fight had fought one time in 16 months. right? One time in 16 months. So you're talking about a guy who, at a minimum, is rusty. Then you're going to force him to fight at a weight that he hasn't been for years, against an opponent who is on a roll. I'm not sure if I understand what the rest of the world expected, right? You knew that Chavez Jr.'s only chance of winning this fight was to come out and hit Canelo while Canelo was cold, right? As I said in the pre-fight video, if, this fight made it to the start of the 5th round and Canelo was still conscious and lucid, in my opinion, the fight was over. And folks, the fight was over, right? Canelo didn't get the KO because Chavez Jr. was in defense survival mode. But you knew that Chavez Jr. was in trouble from the get-go. Let me also say this too in terms of styles, right? Now, Canelo fought a fight that, in my opinion, he lost, but I understand hardly anyone agrees with me. And that's his fight against Miguel Cotto. Now, let's break down Cotto a little bit. Cotto, since he's been with Freddie Roach, is no longer tethered to the pocket like he was against Austin Trout. Now Cotto moves around the ring, and he's sudden, right? He's like Sean Porter in that he jumps in. His calling card is his left hook. Cotto can throw it up top. Cotto can throw it to the body. Against a fighter with a knee problem, right? Sergio Martinez, the fighter who Chavez Jr. said after the fight was better than Canelo, right? Against a fighter like Sergio Martinez after Martinez injured his knee against Chavez Jr., right? Miguel Cotto with Freddie Roach was just too mobile for him. Moved around the ring too well. Came in, threw left hooks to the body and up top, and like Danny Garcia, you don't know when Cotto reaches back whether that left hook's going to be up top or to the body. Cotto camouflages it well. Well, against Canelo, Cotto, mobile, with a great left hook, in my opinion, was able to land that left hook with regularity and was able to hurt Canelo, right? Well, you know the rest. Canelo won the fight by decision. The world declared Canelo the winner. Floyd Mayweather, who I trust, felt that Canelo won the fight by several rounds. Of course, you had the judge who had Canelo dominating the fight. I don't know what fight he was watching. Well, in the world of boxing, here online, just looking at people interested in the sport who give interviews on what they thought about fights, right? One of the people who agreed with me, who actually said after the fight that he thought that Cotto won the fight, was Nacho Beristain. Right now, Beristain wasn't even involved with Chavez Jr. at that time, who, like Cotto, has a great left hook. Great left hook. Well, you know the rest. Nacho Beristain, Boxing Hall of Famer, then decides that there's a possibility that Chavez Jr. could beat Canelo, right? In my opinion, it's because of Cotto's success. By the way, Cotto thought he won the fight. Freddie Roach thought he won the fight against Canelo. Because of Cotto's success with the left hook, right? I believe Nacho Beristain thought that this fighter, Chavez Jr., who's physically bigger than Miguel Cotto, would be able to let his hands go, throw his best punch, that left hook, and have success on Canelo. In other words, on Canelo's right side, right? Even though Canelo has a great straight right hand, the feeling is you can time that right hand, jump inside, and hurt Canelo on that side of his body. Well, let me just say this. things didn't work out, in part because, right, Chavez Jr. is just a different athlete than Cotto, right? Cotto is shorter. Cotto is able to look at Canelo eye to eye. It's a different dynamic. Cotto, when he comes in low, can actually get underneath Canelo. By contrast, here you had 6'6" Chavez Jr., who's not accustomed to fighting on his back foot, doesn't move around the ring as well as Cotto, right? Trying to jump in with the left hook, and he couldn't get low like Cotto. There wasn't the suddenness. He's not sudden like Cotto, right? So to me, the whole thing fell apart. Nacho has Chavez Jr. fighting a Miguel Cotto fight on his back foot, right? Moving around the ring, trying to be sudden with the left hook, and it just didn't work. I thought in this fight, Chavez Jr. is trying to imitate Miguel Cotto. There's another problem, right? When Cotto fought Canelo, he wasn't weight drained, right? Cotto was himself. Here you're talking about Chavez Jr. in the ring, weighing less than he had weighed for years. You want to know how ludicrous the weight limit was. If Chavez Jr. had blown the weight, if he didn't make weight, he would have been hit with a $1 million fine. The Canelo people understood if he comes in at the weight, he's finished. So they put in this punitive $1 million fine on him. So the guy comes in half a pound below the weight, right? Half a pound below it. Still rusty. Still not Miguel Cotto. Certainly not at 164.5 pounds. Right? Let me also say this too. Cotto's movement was such that Canelo couldn't get a rhythm going with his jab. Right? When a guy is moving around and you throw a jab, you know, sometimes that jab's going to come up short. I want you to look at the CompuBox numbers for this Chavez Jr. fight. Right? Canelo is landing that jab with regularity. Now let's use this moment right here to bridge to why he's going to have problems against Golovkin. Right? Now, I thought Canelo looked great. Right? Canelo has a very nice hair trigger left hook. Right? He can throw it in the blink of an eye. He has a very nice hair trigger uppercut. That's my baby crying in the background. We'll just let that be. Right? He has a hair trigger right uppercut. And he has a good jab. The jab that landed all over Chavez Jr. But people underestimate, in my opinion, how well Golovkin uses spacing. Right? Golovkin is a guy who doesn't get hit with a lot of jabs because Golovkin is a guy who likes to stay far away. Right? And there's a difference between Canelo's left hook and Mayweather's left hook. I want the YouTube crowd here to go back to Mayweather against one of my favorite fights, by the way, Diego Corrales. And you're going to notice that Mayweather has a lunging left hook. It's kind of like a Joe Frazier left hook, where he could be far away from you. And he has ring coverage on that left hook, right? He has the timing down where he can drop a foot and leap at you, leaping left hook with that left hook. He could hit you with the left hook from distance. Whereas Canelo's left hook, in my opinion, is local. That's important, right? Because a lot of Canelo's game is local. So, start of the 7th round. Chavez Jr. gets inside on Canelo. Canelo has a nice quick. It's quick, folks. Right uppercut. But it's a tight right uppercut. Right? It's a tight right uppercut. It's an uppercut you get hit with when you're in the pocket. Right? This isn't Anthony Joshua taking steps, coming forward, then hitting Vladimir Klitschko with an uppercut. No, this Canelo's uppercut's an in the pocket uppercut. His left hook is the left hook you throw when you're in the pocket against him. Now, Canelo does have ring coverage on his straight right hand. You saw that in the Austin Trout fight when he knocks down Austin Trout. You saw that in the Amir Khan fight when he knocks down Amir Khan, right? Both fights, he's not exactly standing next to the guy when he gets off that straight right hand. The problem, in my opinion, is Golovkin is going to know from distance. The only punch Canelo can really hurt him with from distance, if Golovkin's outside the pocket, is that straight right hand. By contrast, Golovkin from outside the pocket, where Golovkin is dangerous, can hit you with both hands. Golovkin has ring coverage in both hands. From distance, Golovkin has, in my opinion, a clear advantage. Right? Let's talk about in the pocket. I don't believe Canelo is sudden enough to get in the pocket suddenly on Golovkin and surprise Golovkin. I think Golovkin is going to see Canelo coming. Understand, Golovkin has a very good jab that can flush a fighter out of the pocket. Canelo's not the only person with a jab. Golovkin has an excellent left hook to the body up close. If Golovkin was able to fend off David Lemieux, prodigious power, one of the hardest punchers in boxing, like Canelo. If Golovkin was able to fend off David Lemieux's attempts to get in the pocket and make him pay for the real estate, as Teddy Atlas likes to say, why won't he be able to do the same thing against Saul Alvarez? So like Joseph Parker, right now, the boxing public's down on Golovkin, right? As down as it's been in years because of the competitive fight he had with Danny Jacobs. A fight where he scores the only knockdown of the fight, right? And because of the Kell Brook fight. There's a narrative going around that Kell Brook looked good before he got blown out and had his corner throw in the towel, right? So as a gambler, you need to think about crowd psychology, right? Joseph Parker still unbeaten. Somehow he's supposed to be tarnished. Now you have Dylan White and other fighters calling him out, right? Golovkin's unbeaten. One opponent's corner throws in the towel. The other guy, Golovkin, fights in his hometown, knocks him down, and the only knockdown of the fight is never staggered in the fight, and a lot of people feel that he got somehow a gift decision. So, in my opinion, you're getting Joseph Parker and Golovkin right here at discount prices. Right? You know, this is the opposite end of the spectrum from Anthony Joshua, who's, you know, barely tested and right now is being viewed as some Mike Tyson 2017 version. Right here with Parker and Golovkin, in my opinion, you're getting quality. Unbeaten quality. Both guys are wearing belts, folks. Heavyweight champ, middleweight champ. Right? Both guys are wearing belts. Exactly one guy in the last few years has gone the distance against Golovkin, and in that fight, that guy got knocked down. And I've watched the odds completely cave on Golovkin against Canelo. Look, I think Canelo's an excellent fighter. Trust me, I was very impressed watching him against Chavez Jr. But let's be real here. Canelo has had some close fights. Weren't you wondering? Before the judges' scorecards were announced, who won that Erislandy Lara Canelo fight? Right? Nacho Beristain had him losing to Cotto, right? Freddie Roach had him losing to Cotto, right? Cotto thought he won this fight, and let's face it, Cotto is the kind of fighter who, if he loses, most of the time will say, yeah, I got beat. You know what I mean? Cotto was gracious when he lost to Margarito before, of course, Margarito got busted loading his gloves before the Shane Mosley fight. Then, of course, Cotto went back and looked at the films, and his injuries did look weird, didn't they? Cotto's not going to lose to a fighter and then say, hey, I won the fight for the cameras. The boxing press should interview Cotto. They should ask Cotto why he felt he beat Canelo. Also, think about it. If Nacho Beristain saw that Cotto-Canelo fight, keep in mind, Nacho doesn't need the money. Nacho is already esteemed in the profession. When you see a trainer on that level willing to work with a fighter, Chavez Jr., and then you see the fight style that Chavez Jr. is trying to pull off. He's moving around. Keep in mind, he's the taller man. People thought he was the physically bigger man. But yet he doesn't try to throw his weight around. He doesn't try to fight his usual style. He's actually trying to fight Miguel Cotto's style. Under Beristain's tutelage. That tells you Beristain truly believed Miguel Cotto beat Canelo. Now, whether you do, just understand, clearly there's something going on in that Miguel Cotto-Canelo fight that was working for Cotto. Right? What I want people to do is to also Google Freddie Roach. Now, keep in mind, Roach walks away from Chavez Jr. But then when this Canelo fight had a chance of happening, Roach, who was in Cotto's corner during that Cotto-Canelo fight, actually gave an interview. I believe it's on BoxingScene.com, where he said, you know what? If Chavez Jr. contacts me, I'd be willing to work with him for this fight. Now, who would know better than Freddie Chavez Jr.'s strengths and weaknesses? Freddie knows it's the left hook. Right? Doesn't take a rocket scientist to know Chavez Jr.'s best punch is his left hook. The same as Cotto's. Nacho and Freddie don't need the money. These guys aren't going to take their time on a suicide mission. No, both guys thought that Chavez Jr. at least had an outside shot in this fight. What I want people to do is to Google Abel Sanchez's thoughts. Now keep in mind, Sanchez is very important because he's the trainer of Golovkin. So this should at least give us a window into the thought process of the Golovkin camp. He actually thought that Chavez Jr. was going to give Canelo tough moments. He had Canelo winning the fight, but he thought that at least Chavez Jr. was going to test Canelo. Test him with what? The left hook. So all I'm saying is, think about it. Superstar trainers. We'll just call this the superstar trainer group. Nacho Beristain, Freddie Roach, and Abel Sanchez all view Canelo as a fighter who can be tested. Right? None of them are convinced that Canelo is bulletproof. In my opinion, Golovkin and Sanchez have wanted this fight for a long time. I believe it's because they know, style-wise, it's actually a good matchup for Golovkin. Now, in my favorites folder, I have a video on David Lemieux highlights from 2016. The first part of that video, whoever made it has put in some moments from the Golovkin fight. What I want you to do is to look at those moments. And you're going to see that Lemieux is getting blown out by Golovkin from distance. Golovkin's not close enough to get hurt by Lemieux. Right? What I want you to do too is to go back and look at the Golovkin-Marco Antonio Rubio fight. Now Rubio was a fighter who was tough inside. Right? Rubio beat Lemieux, gave Lemieux his first loss. Right? Marco Rubio isn't close enough to Golovkin to hurt Golovkin. So, if the fight is fought at distance between Golovkin and Canelo, don't you think that Golovkin will be at an advantage? Aren't you concerned that there have been stretches in Canelo fights? The Amir Khan, first few rounds of the fight. I know the knockout has caused amnesia, right? I encourage people to go back and look at Canelo Khan, the beginning of that fight. Teddy Atlas, another superstar trainer, did not give Canelo a round in that fight before the knockout. Right? Think about it. Why are superstar trainers looking at Canelo and thinking that he can be beat? And isn't this, Golovkin, the deep end of the pool for the middleweight division? Let me add too, Canelo looked ripped to me at 164.5. Right? He looked ripped. Now I'm someone who really believes that fighters yo-yoing in weight isn't the best idea. Let's say it's not the best idea I've heard for a fighter in terms of preparing for a fight. You're telling me that the Canelo, who looked good at 164.5, had stamina at 164.5, you're telling me that he's not going to lose 4.5 pounds. 4.5 pounds. And be completely unfazed at his absolute best at 160 pounds against Golovkin. You know, HBO went to the fighters, went to both Canelo and Chavez Jr. before this fight, and they said, hey, will you step on the scale for us here? Let's see how much you weigh fight night. Did you know that both of the guys, both of them, declined to get on the scale? Right? Now forget boxing PR and all this other stuff. Forget the prior talk about Canelo's not really a middleweight, right? Even though Canelo was a middleweight champion. Forget all that talk. If Canelo's at his best at 160 pounds, then even with the 164.5 catch weight against Chavez Jr., why wouldn't Canelo just show up at his best for the fight at 160 pounds? No, he showed up at 164 pounds, didn't he? Right? He didn't show up at 160. 160 might not be Canelo at his best. Right? Keep in mind the way boxing works. There could be a catch weight. You don't have to weigh the catch weight. You could be lower than the catch weight. No one's going to be upset if you show up weighing 160 for a fight with a catch weight of 164.5. Understand, when Floyd Mayweather fought Oscar De La Hoya, he did not weigh 154. Floyd knew he was at his best at, 150-ish. Right? That's where he showed up. Now, the fact that Canelo showed up at this weigh-in at 164 tells me that he's not at his best at 160. That he's a bit weight drained at 160. Right? That's not the best idea, in my opinion, against a fighter as good as Golovkin. I still like Golovkin in the fight, and I was very impressed. Canelo, flash hand speed here, right? Here trigger left hook, here trigger uppercut, right? Chavez Jr. may not have won a round in this fight. I like the fact, too, that Canelo goes over to the side of the ropes. He's comfortable with his back up against the ropes. Then when Chavez Jr., whose forte is coming inside, right, by the ropes, that's how he normally wins fights. When he comes inside over there, Canelo calmly, busts his chops with a right uppercut. Gets the fight back in the middle of the ring. Right? Don't get me wrong, Canelo is skilled. But let's just say you don't want to be up against the ropes against Golovkin, do you? Right? How'd that work out for Marco Antonio Rubio? Also, what happens if you're up on the ropes, Golovkin's over there battering you? You try to throw that nice compact right uppercut, and Golovkin, who's a master at spacing, is too far away to get hit with that right uppercut. Right? I still expect Golovkin to win the fight. I believe he's on sale, right? Because crowd psychology is what it is. He's getting dissed like Joseph Parker's getting dissed by public sentiment right now, right? I like Golovkin over Canelo. I think you're getting good odds here. If Joseph Parker fights Dillian Whyte or Tony Bellew, I'm taking Joseph Parker in both of those fights, wherever the fights take place. It could take place in the UK. I couldn't care less. I think Joseph Parker moves too well for Dillian Whyte. Right? Moves too well for Dillian Whyte, and unless he blows out an Achilles, I think he'd be too big and too much for Tony Bellew. Let's remember, right? Tony Bellew doesn't have a lot of experience at heavyweight. Let's remember that David Haye fight turns when David Haye loses a leg. Right? Anyway, that's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.